don't know. I'm in the dark. I don't know if I'm visible or not. Hopefully I am. Um, I'm, there were so many things that I wanted to do today. Um, I was supposed to do like a couple of interviews. Um, but for some reason, like I did the research, but I like to know a lot of what I researched by head, even if I can't recall all of it. Um, but I need to make sure that when I take a small glance at what I wrote, I can instantly remember what I was basically typing when I wrote that. So I don't feel like I was prepared for those particular interviews, and that's why basically it took so long. I also didn't do my usual, live predictions and breakdowns, but which is probably a good thing because this was like a horrible UFC fight night for a lot of people. Um, but nonetheless, I'm going to go through, or rather recap, the entire card. If you don't know already, I have a relationship now with the EFC, and I'll be interviewing their main event and co-main events, mainly champions. I've already started with one of those interviews, which is already on my channel. So without wasting any further time, let me go through the entire card. This was a horrible night. I'm sure for a lot of people, man. Like a lot of people who we thought I mean, Chris Weidman won a fight. Obviously he was busy poking other people in the eye, but I'll get to that fight. For now, let's start with the first opener, which was Angel Pacheco versus Colin Logren. Um, this dude, who I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name properly, Colin. I think Colin looked good. He looked improved, but I don't know how good he is, man. I guess we'll just have to wait and see as he progresses. But that was a really solid performance. Jesus Christ, this card was terrible. Eye pokes, bad stoppages. Luca just quit. I mean, like I'm defeated. If you can see, just that whenever I talk to you guys, like my energy comes back. But it was horrible, man. Like, it broke my heart. It was horrible. I sincerely agree. Um, and I don't even want to look at like my predictions because anyway, Andrei Petrovsky versus Jacob Milkun. Another one. There were a couple of things that were wrong with this particular fight. I don't know why it ended the way it did because I feel like Petrovsky was significantly better in a sense, but nonetheless, Jacob looked better in that particular fight. I guess that's the problem with MMA, and sports in general. One person can seemingly feel or seem like these are the better fighters, but on the night of the fight, you don't know. A variety of things can happen. I'm so frustrated with Erin Blanchfield and her team, man. But I'll get to that fight. Um, so yeah, congrats to Jacob. He looked good in this particular fight. Another good fight: Ibo Aslan versus Anton Turkalji. Um, yeah, there isn't much to say. I think Ibo looked good. I think he deserved the win, and yeah, on to the next. There are specific fights that I actually want to speak about, and they are at the top, but I don't want to just skip over every single fight. Um, Denis Bazukja, this dude surprised me. I honestly didn't expect him to actually perform the way he did. I felt like he was on his way to basically being like a washed up fighter in a sense. So yeah, I was wrong about that. Burns, yeah, it's been a rough night for the Burns family for this past two, actually this whole month. Burns being knocked out by Jack Della Maddalena, and then Julio Arce now doing it to his younger brother. Like, but Herbert, I feel like the problem with I don't know where the problem with Herbert is actually, because he's good, but for some reason when he gets into the octagon, something just goes wrong. Um, he tried in the beginning, like in the beginning rounds, but since he got into the UFC, he's never actually even looked like he could be in the rankings, which is significantly sad. But it is what it is. On to the next one. Verna Jandiroba versus Lupi Godinez. The fights on this card, man. Um, if you can tell body language, like I'm so drained, guys. Like, because whenever people just think I'm just running this channel on J for as a hobby or whatever the case is, I put in a lot of effort into everything I do on this channel, and when things don't go the way I want them to go, like it destroys me. I to the point whereby I feel like, well, maybe I should just leave this whole thing. But I think it helps that I'm doing interviews now, so um, I don't have to feel like it's because when an entire channel is dedicated to um, is dedicated to what do you call it, analysis and predictions. I would like for it to be like extremely accurate, and sometimes it's a little bit challenging when it doesn't go the way I want it to go. But nonetheless, um, Jandirova, she looked good. I feel like she was a little bit stronger in this particular fight, which really was surprising, because I think Lupi Godinez would have taken that one. But on to the next one, Hermes versus Nate Landwehr versus Hermes. Yeah, this card was hectic, man. Jamal Hermes. Jamal Hermes looked good in the beginning of the fight. I I think maybe he rushed too much. He was too aggressive too early. He was doing well. I think maybe he got overly aggressive, and ignored his defense basically, which is what ultimately caused his downfall. So yeah, congrats to Nate Landwehr. I honestly didn't think he would win this fight. Cheating Joaquin versus Rhys McKee. Yeah, Chidi looked good. I think Chidi looked improved. I think he should have been fighting at welterweight for a very long time because it's like a Kevin Holland and Joaquin Buckley and all those type of things. I feel like they were fighting at a higher weight class than they should have been. So he looked good. Even he was able to even defend takedowns, and he was even offensive on the ground, which was really good. Carl Nelson versus Bill Algeo versus Carl Nelson. Ooh, yeah, another one that surprised me. Um, Carl Nelson looked the way I thought Bill Algeo would look in this particular fight. He did really well. Congrats to him. Nursulton Ruziboev versus Adrikas Dumas. Um, this was an incredible fight. I think Nursulton has a really bright future in the UFC. Like he's very very good, and he has so much experience in such a short period of time. Like he's only 30 years old, and like he's had so many fights. Like he's on the level of a veteran or rather a legend. Basically, not necessarily in terms of wins or anything like that, but in terms of like the kind of experience that he has. You know. So yeah, he looked good. I'm excited about his future in the UFC. I would like to see how he does in higher rankings basically. So yeah, he looked really good. Chris Weidman versus Bruno Silva. This fight annoyed me a lot because especially towards the end, I I'm not too upset with it because I feel like Bruno Silva was losing that fight. Chris Weidman, despite the fouls that he was committing, he actually looked good in this particular fight, and it clearly shows that after the last fight, he looked horrible, and he went back and actually made an effort to improve, and he actually did. Um, I don't know what that says about Bruno Silva now, because it, if you can't beat the 39-year-old Chris Weidman, then if he doesn't do anything about his career, he's going to get cut from the UFC at some point soon. actually. So what annoyed me is that Chris Weidman won that fight because of eye pokes. Like the stoppage was caused by eye pokes, and he didn't even feel bad about it. He blamed him for actually how he reacted, as opposed to taking ownership for what he did. You know, it, I was so disappointed, but nonetheless, he deserved to win, despite the fact that he cheated. Vicente Luque versus Joaquin Buckley. Um, I picked Vicente Luque, but I'm actually happy that Buckley won that particular fight because um, I think he deserves it, man. I think Luque has been in the position he's been at for a very long time, and I don't feel like he's doing anything to advance that position and to get to a higher level. I don't feel like he's trying to improve. He's not very active. Like there's so many things that make me feel like he doesn't. He's not trying to become a champion. He's just trying to participate and maybe keep his ranking, earn a check, and all those type of things, and that becomes a problem. With Joaquin Buckley, he's at the very least trying to win. He's at the very least trying to actually become a champion, and I'm glad he won, even though it means like I was wrong to pick Vicente Luque, but I'm actually very happy that he won. So congrats to him. And the main event, I think the biggest problem that Erin Blanchfield's team made um, was to what do you call it? Was to game plan to actually try to strike with Manon Fiorot. You know, because the biggest issue did not come in the fight, right? Because you can't adjust in a fight unless if you are extremely well rounded, and we know that Erin Blanchfield is not necessarily well rounded. She's she's good at something, she's good at a particular thing, but she's not very well rounded. So if you make the mistake of choosing the wrong strategy, then it's going to cost you, which is what happened with Erin. I think she got overconfident by she was made to think she can strike by fighting Tyler Santos and fighting Jessica Andrade. Jessica Andrade cannot strike. She can throw hands and actually get a knockout, but she's not a technical striker. Tyler Santos is better on the ground than she is on the feet, I think. So I think those two fights misled her and even her coaches. And it was even stupid. Even if you think your pupil can strike, it's stupid to try and game plan with your opponent's strength, right? It's like, okay, I'm good at grappling, but I'm going to game plan to strike with her because it might be difficult to take her down. If they had focused, it's basically what Habib was doing, you know. Even if you are fighting one of the hardest people to take down, that's what you should be working on in your camp instead of trying to match their skill because they've been doing that for a long time. If you try to learn how to strike, that's another example is Israel Adesanya. He's a striker and he makes sure that he focuses on that. If at one point Israel Adesanya was like, I'm fighting a grappler, so now my game plan is to try and grapple with them. How far would he have been? So I blame her team. I think she should change her team. She's still young, so she has enough time to actually improve and recover and become a champion eventually. But I feel like her team let her down because the camp should have been focused on um, helping her get takedowns on someone who's difficult to take down. Making her chain wrestling against maybe bigger fighters, maybe featherweights or let's say bantamweight fighters or even featherweight fighters. People who are difficult to take down, people who are heavier than her, because obviously they went into that fight knowing that Fiorot would be a lot bigger than her and all those type of things. So I feel like had they made enough effort to try and actually prepare for that particular fight and actually prepared and focused on takedowns, because that was the only focus that they should have been focusing on. is how to take her down, despite the fact that she's difficult to take down. I think they would have had a lot more success than actually saying, well, she might be difficult to take down, so let's try to strike with someone who's been striking for a very long time. That's one of the stupidest things that you could ever do. Um, you do what it shows also low fight IQ for her team, for her coaches. For you to game plan like that, it shows that you're stupid. You know, it's the same stupid decisions that Curtis Blades would make sometimes. Like in a fight where he should have been trying to focusing on actually getting takedowns, he was trying to strike with someone who's primarily a striker, which was honestly very frustrating. But anyway, that's how it went. I'm disappointed. I actually felt like if Erin Blanchfield had made the effort to try and focus on her takedown in her fight camp, she would have had a lot more success than trying to learn how to strike and just so that she can prove that she's a complete fighter. That's something you have to accumulate over a period of time. But in the beginning, you focus on what you're good at. And as time progresses, that's when you can see if you can actually stand. And depending on how you do against other fighters, you don't try to stand because you've had success against other like people like Jessica Andrade. That was one of the most frustrating things I've ever actually experienced. Anyway, this is the end of my stream. I've started doing live interviews, so I hope you enjoy them. For now, I'm out. Deuces.